A warm welcome to you wherever you are on this beautiful planet. This is Ubiquity University's Great Books course, and I warm welcome you all. I don't know where you are. I'm in the Loire Valley in France, and it's super warm here, but it's amazing. I'd like to share, first of all, that Ubiquity University had an amazing Charter Academy course last week. And if you haven't been, hope you can come soon, because it is just the most amazing experience. Not just that we walk the labyrinth in the 1,000 years old cathedral, but we have various workshops from Sufi dancing to Jim Garrison's amazing presentation on Pythagoras this year. This is what we had, and we had Chloe Goodchild this year, because the theme was on music. Anyway, we will have some more details of this amazing course soon on our website, and we will send out a newsletter. But now I'd like to segue back to the Great Books course, and the presentation today will be on David Whyte's Crossing the Unknown Sea. And I must say, honestly, that I haven't read the book. I haven't even heard about the book, but I can't wait to learn more about it. And this is one of the reasons Jim and I, we run this wonderful course, because so many of us read amazing books and the others don't know about it. So let's just introduce those who are important to others. And we welcome today one of our amazing doctoral students by Sanna Lamb. She is not just a doctoral student, but has so much knowledge and wisdom that she shares with great communities, not just in Switzerland where she lives and in Europe, but she is an international speaker, presenter, runs workshops. She is knowledgeable in consciousness studies, and she had a near-death experience which propelled her to investigate the mind, soul, and body connection. She worked with Thomas Hübel, and yeah, so much and so more. But anyway, I don't want to wait any longer. Sanna, I pass the talking stick to you, and as usual, you run, the show as you wish, and we can't wait to hear about this amazing book. So over to you, Sanna.
Thank you, Georgie. So great to be here with you. I'm so moved and touched by this invitation and this opportunity to share something that I love dearly, that's meant so much to me, and to be able to tell you all about it. And I have had a retreat center in the Swiss Alps for 14 years, and I have experienced many communities, online and offline, and I really can say that Ubiquity has a very special, very generous community and offerings on and offline. So sorry I didn't make it to Chartres this year, but last year it was really important for me to be able to meet you in person and hug you all and get to spend that delicious time together. So today I'm going to be sharing about David Whyte's amazing book and how he's offering these openings similar to Ubiquity for us to find our way, to find our unique way and unique sense of personal, professional identity. So yeah, again, I really appreciate Ubiquity for being so welcoming and inclusive and supporting us in our journeys. So it's quite similar. So before we begin, let's just take a breath to arrive and to create that opening inside of our bodies. And as I go along, so much of David Whyte's work is having to do with landscape. And sort of as an idea, I thought I might, let's see if I can screen share, put on some lovely landscapes for you to look at so that you can really relax and receive and yeah, take it easy. So I'm gonna click here, and the first picture I'm gonna share is the harbor This was my childhood landscape growing up on Long Island, New York. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to just introduce what we're doing today. It's going to be a little bit different. It's going to be experiential, because that's what poetry is. It's the experience of something. And David Whyte is writing just exquisite prose and poetry. Prose is more the explaining of something, and poetry is the experience of it. So just so thankful to be able to share this love that I have for David Whyte's thinking and writing and his gorgeous spirit. And again, so thankful to Ubiquity for offering this or inviting me for this opportunity. And just a short introduction. So here you see it, my background. Born in New York City, raised on Long Island in this beautiful Cold Spring Harbor. And yeah, in companionship to the unknown seas that we're all traversing, I've crossed quite a few in my own life. I was born in New York and now I live in Switzerland. And I've worked in corporate America. And then, as Georgie mentioned, I had a near-death. It was a near-drowning experience. Actually, there are some similarities to David Whyte's experience of his own near-drowning experience in the book. And this catapulted me into a course change. So many of us, we have, something that we least want to have happen to us, but it ends up being a blessing. And yeah, I changed course, and then I moved into a more globally connected creative lifestyle of business and living. And I committed to lifelong learning, and my work continues to be, using David Whyte's words, a pilgrimage to identity. Today, I work as an integrative career and leadership consultant and speak about the difficult transitions. And I also speak about professional identity. And most particularly, I love supporting people from career into calling. So I call it career to calling. Having created many transformational events and programs, I identify as a social artist and guide for artists and leaders who build bridges between worlds. And you can find me online. My website is my name, and it's also Leaders in Transition with a hyphen between the words.com. So Crossing the Unknown Sea, Work as a Pilgrimage to Identity, is a bridge building book. It's absolutely a perfect match for Ubiquity, a contemporary great book, bridging genres of spirituality and business, poetry, biography, history, adventure, and travel, bridging separation of mind, heart, and mystical and practical, of the masculine and feminine, of aloneness and togetherness, of doing and being. So I experience this book as a living work of art. And every time I read it, it opens up new dimensions for me. So with that, I'm going to see if I can change. Let's see if I can change the slide. Hold on. Hold on one second. Let's do that. Picture of David Whyte. Here we go. Okay, I hope you see that. Do you see David Whyte there, Georgie?
No, not yet.
Okay, hold on. I have to click screen share. Sorry for this interruption. Okay, there we go. All right. And okay, well, I'll show you. Actually, this is where I had my spiritual retreat center in the mountains in Wengen, Switzerland. And we did that for 14 years. And let's see what else I can show you. It's kind of fun. Personalize it. David says, make business personal, make everything personal, more personal. So that's the Jungfrau, this great, vast mountain in the Bernese Oberland. And I always think of her as having these great arms of embrace with the Silberhorn pyramid there to the right. There's a lot of beautiful sacred geometry in this area. So landscape has been very important to me. My mother was a landscape painter. Yeah. Okay, here we go. David Whyte. Make him big. You'll get to watch him for a while. So let's see. Yeah, so my intention, it's the height of summer and we're all sort of experiencing a heat wave. So I hope to serve this up as a tall glass of refreshing goodness, beauty, and wisdom. And I invite you to come in and just leave your bags at the door and take your shoes off, wiggle your toes. And may this be an antidote to all of us for the incredible tensions of today's turbulent times. So when I mentioned to Jim Garrison, president of Ubiquity, you all know him, but there may be other people who are new to this world. So I mentioned this extraordinary book. He recognized the author, I guess as you, Georgie, did, but he hadn't read the book. So I'm very happy to deliver Crossing the Unknown Sea as a contemporary great book into the library and archives of Ubiquity. I became aware of David Whyte's poems in the 90s while teaching an online course called Work as a Spiritual Path. And in the 2010s, my late mentor and friend, Barry Heerman, a leading organizational development professional in the US, invited the facilitators of our Noble Purpose community, along with legal permission from David Whyte and his publishing house, to develop an online course based on this very book. And over the next 5 years, we offered this up as a vessel and voyage for personal and professional discovery, including videos, journaling, questions, and facilitation of learning circles for live deep dive sharing, designed for accessing the unique gifts and resources that each of us carries within. I'm going to change the slide here. And let's see. Okay, we'll go to this one. Yeah, we'll take this one. All right. Yeah, so I'm dedicating this presentation to my dear Barry Heerman with the intention to whet your appetite for the wonderful combination of poetry, prose, storytelling, and beautiful questions that David Whyte is widely acclaimed for. Part one will address the first half of the book, focusing on the personal realm of one's deepest truth, essence, and purpose. Today, we will be exploring the power of poetic imagination to shine light on your work as a pilgrimage of identity. And as well, we will be exploring the power of beautiful questions, or the power of a beautiful question, for connecting with your authentic voice and unique contribution. So this book and process are an offering for all you pilgrims out there on the path, from beginnings of having a job to the mid-ocean of doing a career, to the experience of arrival and arrivals of being a lighthouse for others, bravely showing up and using your influence and work as a source for good. The transformational journey of work as a pilgrimage of identity is simple, yet is not easy, hazarding your gifts to find your true voice and make your mark in the world. Part 2 will be happening on August 8th, which is known as Lion's Gate. How cool is that? We will be addressing the second half of the book in part 2 and focusing on the public realm of identity and working together. So for today, we'll focus on what it means to belong to oneself from inside out. Part 2 will open the aperture to look at how we belong to the world, which is more of a relational approach and includes practical and actionable aspects of identity, leadership for working together, and dancing with uncertainty. Both presentations will highlight what Whyte considers to be the basis of his work. He refers to this as the conversational nature of reality and describes this as the fact that we don't get to choose so often between things we hope we can choose between. Does that sound familiar? This also extends to what Whyte has coined as conversational leadership, which directly relates to the power of a beautiful question. So themes such as intimacy, the intimacy of not knowing, I love that. That is such a frontier horizon opening, the intimacy of not knowing. Also courageous vulnerability. How courageous is it to be vulnerable, and how important it is for creating intimacy? And a felt sense of belonging. This is really such a key in this fast-paced world where people don't really have as much time to really feel their feelings and to connect in authentic ways. And let's see, these are all deeply embedded and illustrated by metaphors for thresholds and landscapes and images for territories, frontiers, and horizons. So we've already seen a picture of David Whyte. Let me just tell you a little bit more about him, but I'll change the picture here on the screen. See what I can put here. Oh, this is a nice one. We'll put this one up here. Yeah, we can just breathe with this beautiful image. So David Whyte is an Anglo-Irish poet-philosopher in possession of an extraordinary ability to distill complex emotions and experiences into poignant and evocative words. His masterful work is widely referenced, resonant, and transformative, so much so that he was invited to take the powers of poetry into the unlikely realm of corporate America. As one executive put it, because the language in that world is not large enough for the territory that we've already entered. The language in that world of corporate work is not large enough for the territory that we've already entered into. And David Whyte is perhaps best known for his book, The Heart Aroused, Poetry and the Preservation of the Soul in a Corporate America. So this book, Crossing the Unknown Sea, is more of a journey. It's more of an adventure. And of course, all of his work is very biographical, but I'd say this book is a little bit more fun, and it's a great summer read, and it will take you deep. Yeah, and Whyte has authored 12 books of poetry and 4 books of prose. So if you Google David Whyte, you will find over 20 million results. He locates himself in 3 different worlds. In his words, one is just as a poet with the intimacy of my readers and my listeners and audiences, and then I work in the theological and psychological worlds. Many have been drawn to his distinctive combination of poetry, prose, and storytelling. I think of it as like a hot toddy on a cold day. It's comforted many of us, and it's where art and wisdom and contemplation and transformation all intermingle to satisfying results. I love multidimensional things. I love interdisciplinary. I love bridge builders who are working towards wholeness. And his writing is warm and rich with metaphors, vivid imagery, and lyrical beauty. One might never hear a more soothing voice, a voice that will stay with you long after putting this book down. So from the About page on his website, Whyte is writing, his writing explores the timeless relationship of human beings to their world, to creation, to others, and to the end of life itself. He makes his home in the Pacific Northwest, where rain and changeable skies remind him of the other more distant homes from which he comes, Yorkshire, Wales, and Ireland. He has traveled extensively, including working as a guide in the Galapagos and leading trips into the Himalaya. Much of his work chronicles a close relationship to landscape and histories. He speaks to the suffering and joy that accompany revelation and the necessity of belonging to families, people, and places. David Whyte's poetry can be heard in the boardrooms of Fortune 500 companies, the hallowed halls of educational institutions, and from the stages of literary festivals and theological conferences. In each of these disparate settings, his work and compelling speaking style is moving and relevant, transcending the confines of any individual context. So now we get to the book, and I'm going to choose another picture for you. I was looking for something from William Blake, but let's see. Let's start with, okay, we start with this one. Yeah. All righty. And yes, I'm going to be reading you a poem. Reading a poem, invoking a space, an energy, an experience. So I'm going to be reading this poem called Loaves and Fishes. It's on page 186 of Crossing. Again, breathe, relax, open up space inside of yourself. Loaves and fishes. This is not the age of information. This is not the age of information. Forget the news and the radio and the blurred screen. This is the time of loaves and fishes. People are hungry, and one good word is bread for 1,000. People are hungry, and one good word is bread for 1,000. Loaves and Fishes by David Whyte. So yeah, I like often with giving presentations to include poetry. It's a way of entering into space, creating a container and a dimension and context. I also love to send poems to clients. I call them medicine poems. It's a great pleasure and joy for me. And it's a way of invoking the spirit of the context and the needs that are facing us. And so invoking the spirit of these times and the real needs in the face of the world in which we now find ourselves. A fierce world, often dominated by the rational and analytical, a world that values efficiency, productivity, and certainty. Crossing the Unknown Sea is the story of David Whyte's personal pilgrimage of questions, crises, and turning points in his search for meaningful work suited to his nature. Whyte employs the imagery of a pilgrimage, alluding to the importance of heart and soul when questing to find one's true calling and vocation. Whyte demonstrates how it is that through poetry, we have access to a different mode of knowing, one that encompasses both the intellect and the heart, one that integrates and transcends. Rather than seeking quick answers or solutions, poetry invites us to slow down, engage our senses, and open to the deeper questions and ambiguities of existence. It offers us a soothing balm of solace, connection, and an essential sense of belonging, along with insight and support for navigating the complexities of our journey. In the author's words on page 26, this book is meant to breathe upon and ignite the embers of our own memory and our own courage. In it, I hope to bring the powers of the imagination to bear on our present vexing strategic questions about work, and to call upon a deep shared memory of the greater story of which we constantly forget we are part of. It is meant to get below our present preoccupation with the Dow Jones and the NASDAQ and begin an invisible conversation with all those who have gone before us and those who will inherit what we make of ourselves. It is, for the most part, a personal story. And as I have spent much of my life writing with, wrestling with unknowns, it is meant to be a dedication to that unknown. It is meant to be a dedication to that unknown. Our great hope in wrestling with that unknown, we must learn to call our life and our work. Our great hope in wrestling and wrestling with the unknowns yet to come. I wrote this book based on my perception that at the threshold of our new century, we are attempting to gather whatever courage we have dormant in our hearts, individually and collectively, for a great journey across a difficult and unknown sea. So these are extraordinary times in which we find ourselves, and a clear and loud call for each of us to engage with what is extraordinary within us. I think through Humanity Rising, not once, several times, I heard people saying that as dark as it gets, the brighter they get, the more engaged they get. So there is hope. At the beginning of the book, Whyte enrolls the unstoppable creator, William Blake, English poet, painter, and printmaker, as an ally for our journey with this quote: "Does a firm persuasion that a thing is so make it so?" He replied, "All poets believe it does. And in ages of imagination, this firm persuasion removes mountains. But many are not capable of firm persuasion of anything. But many are not capable of firm persuasion of anything." I love that reference of ages of imagination. And I'm often using this meme of imagine better. So yes, may this be a great age of imagination and imagining better. So as with the body of much of Whyte's work, he encourages us to tap into our inner resources, to cultivate resilience and discover our own unique capacities to embrace the difficult and uncomfortable aspects of life, and then transform them into opportunities for self-discovery and growth. Woven throughout this extraordinary book, Whyte invokes the voices of other poets such as Dante Alighieri, Emily Dickinson, Rainer Maria Rilke, Walt Whitman, and William Wordsworth, as he unravels the seminal works that have influenced his own development in parallel to our universal yearnings for work that we love. Crossing the Unknown Sea is a biographical, philosophical masterpiece by an author who has arrived into his captaincy and mastery as a guide who elevates our understanding and appreciation of work as a spiritual practice and path. So I think what I'd really love to do is just sort of quickly highlight some. I'm going to just flip through the book to just highlight some of the core themes. So he has structured the book as beginnings, mid-ocean, and arrivals, as I referred to. And within the beginnings is the necessity of courage and conversation, setting out with a firm persuasion. And I really, really love being introduced to William Blake. And this is how he describes William Blake's firm persuasion. To have a firm persuasion in our work, to feel that what we do is right for ourselves and good for the world at exactly the same time, is one of the great triumphs. And here Blake describes it: "My fingers emit sparks of fire with expectation of my future labors," said the passionate Blake in a letter promising plenty of hard work to his patron. He was speaking from a felt sense of fulfillment. Again, the embodiment, the felt sense of fulfillment. And later he's talking about a felt sense of belonging, and how Blake was right smack in the middle of the 18th century, in an age when Western ideas of work were going through enormous change, an age when the factory was born and production in and for itself was first conceived as an imaginative good. But Blake stood firm amid it all in his approach to work and in his writing, saying essentially nothing had changed. Factory or farm individuals needed a sense of belonging in their work, a conversation with something larger than themselves, a felt participation, a touch of spiritual fulfillment, and the mysterious generative nature of that fulfillment. So yeah, I mean, that says quite a lot in terms of that felt sense of belonging, that sense of safety, that sense of security, that sense of being free. Later on, he references Joseph Campbell, who prescribes that we all need to have a time every day where we forget all of our responsibilities, even if for 2 minutes, you know, and really allow ourselves to feel that sense of freedom and possibility. And yeah, so later in the book, Whyte says that he thinks we should practice the felt sense of happiness. You know, I mean, there's a lot to feel so devastated about, but we need to practice feeling uplifted and alive. And Whyte's writing and his poetry does just that. So then after this beginnings comes the mid-ocean, and there's really this sort of midlife crisis time of feeling powerless at times. And then Whyte calls it the cliff's edge of life. And the transformation is from powerless to participation. And he talks about a star for navigation. Wonderful things about ambition. I hope I can find them for you. But basically, you know, ambition sees up to the horizon, but it doesn't see beyond the horizon. And so we have to be careful of that. And then finally, there's the arrivals segment. And this is about exhaustion to wholeheartedness. So let's see. Oh, I know what I wanted to share with you is this very special, let's see if I can find it. Yes, in particular, to recount an endearing aspect of Whyte's illumination, integration, and transpersonal awareness, approaching the horizon of his own belonging to himself. Whyte realizes the importance of remembering the invisible influences of those who have gone before us. He accomplishes this in a delightful and convincing way by pointing to the intuitive and mystical powers of empathy. When we can tell our own story and have it experienced, have our experience be witnessed in kindness, we are able to receive the seminal lesson, the one thing that has eluded us and been hiding in our shadows, perhaps blocked from our sunshine image of self-importance. Integrating and transcending ourselves, we remember the bigger story of which we are a part. Okay, so healing is available when, having been seen, having grown further, we are able to join the family of humanity. And I will share that when I was 14 years old, my mother gave me a book from the Museum of Modern Art called The Family of Man. And it was the largest photographic exhibit ever, showing these black and white archetypal images of men and women and couples going through these archetypal experiences of life. And this book it's the way that David Whyte talks about at age 9, his first book of poetry, how he has a wonderful way of saying, like, it descended upon him like a hawk and like entered into his body like a wild animal. He says it much better than I can, but he kind of invites you into reflection and integration of your own biography and what were those pivotal moments or experiences that woke up your extraordinary love of something. And yeah, so then a very, very funny and endearing moment is when, after he's had his near-death experience, and he was saved miraculously from the ocean's arms, he is listening to his mother telling him how she had a dream, his little petite Irish mother, armchair traveler, who's having a spot of something with him late night by the fire, and telling him about a dream where he dreamed of David's being swept up in the ocean. And she said, I reached down and picked you up by the scruff of your neck and placed you on the land. And yeah, he's writing here, from somewhere inside the fearful memory, I felt a level of absurdity about the whole thing, about my pretensions and the sense I had of my own powers. I found myself amidst the waves of laughter at the folly of it all. They began to ripple to the surface, and my mother began to laugh too. Bloody marvelous, isn't it? I said. Here I am adventuring around the world like some invulnerable version of Indiana Jones, Lord of all I survey, and all the time it's my bloody mother coming in like the cavalry at the end and saving me from the jaws of destruction. We raised the glasses together, hooting at the image. But as the laughter subsided, I found myself telling myself in no uncertain terms, David, whatever it is you think you are, give it up. There are powers at play in the world about which you know very little. Like, for instance, this little woman sitting in front of you who sponsored your exclusive membership in this hard to obtain world. For all you know, still pays, and for all you know, still pays a hefty part of your annual dues. He goes on to say, I stopped trying to do it all myself, and I was given a sense of the intimate way everything is a brother and sister to everything else, and the fierce ecologies of belonging. Yeah, through my near-drowning, near-death experience, I can say that there's quite something similar there in terms of kind of breaking out of that sort of focus of oneself as separate. Let's see. So yes, whatever powers we have in the world, in our work, in our powers of leadership, in our imaginations, they are in the gift of a much larger world than the one we have made for ourselves. They are only a part of deeper, inescapable ancestral imaginings. There is a coda to my mother's childhood, to the strange way our particular childhoods are handed down generation to generation. Whatever sense I have of my own identity as a man, there is part of me forever singing my heart out like a young girl, like his mother, while his mother's mother was dying in bed. That's part of the story. There's a part of me for all my singing of poetry and prose that will not sing that one song again. In a parallel world, there's a part of me, hands half frozen, fishing for silver clouds of herring in the North Sea, as my father's family did at the end of the 19th century. What other unspoken stories and lives live on in each of us, in our work, in our imaginings? We are the endings of some stories and the carrying on of others, and often just the beginning of many. It is not our place to finish. So this is from the section called Ambition and Ancestral Imaginings. And I think it's pretty powerful. And with that, we are arriving into the sort of arrival section of the book, which is more than, you know, we're transitioning from the mid-ocean to the arrivals. And I would like to finish the presentation by offering the following two pieces of poetry, 2 or 3 pieces of poetry. I'll check the time here. Yes. Paired with beautiful questions to help us further reflect and to digest our own marvelous journey. I'm going to change the picture here. Yeah, I was looking for some paintings from William Blake, but I ended up getting this one from Turner, which I quite like. But let's see, I think we're going to start with Sweet Darkness. So I'll choose this one. All righty. How am I going to get that to expand? Hold on. Hold on. There we go. All right. So the art of poetic imagination, the power of not knowing, deep listening and presence. Whyte's teachings emphasize the importance of deep listening to ourselves, to others, and to the world. He invites readers to cultivate presence, attention, and a sense of wonder. This approach fosters a deeper connection with ourselves, with others, and the natural world, which enables a transformative and profound engagement with life. And with this picture and that introduction, I'm going to read a poem called Sweet Darkness. When your eyes are tired, the world is tired also. When your vision has gone, no part of the world can find you. Time to go into the dark, where the night has eyes to recognize its own. There you can be sure you are not beyond love. The dark will be your home tonight. The night will give you a horizon further than you can see. You must learn one thing. You must learn one thing. The world was made to be free in. Give up all other worlds except the one to which you belong. Give up all other worlds except the one to which you belong. Sometimes it takes darkness and the sweet confinement of your aloneness to learn. Anything or anyone that does not bring you alive is too small for you. Hold on. Yeah, go back to that. Sorry about that. The darkness is calling. Hey, everybody. Okay. Interesting. Okay. All right. So the point being, Sweet Darkness, finding your North Star can be obscured by a difficult time, just like I had just had. Not being able to see how to turn the phone off, but more importantly, not being able to see, and often for prolonged periods of time. The point is surrender into the beauty of the night, embrace the necessity of not knowing as a new horizon, embrace the necessity of not knowing as a new horizon. I think that's a very, very helpful point. A new horizon out of which a truly new direction can emerge. What is the most significant? Oh, here's the question for you. Here's the beautiful question for you. What is the most significant crossing that you are currently traversing in some realm of your personal or career life? What is the most significant crossing that you are currently traversing in some realm of your personal or career life? So I invite you just to take a minute to reflect on what is the most significant crossing. This book is all about having the courage to make a change. I think collectively it's really clear there are many ways that we're called to have the courage to let go of certain things and to open up to new things. But you personally, what is the most significant crossing that you are traversing in some realm of your personal or career life? You can write it down and chew on it. It's a question to sleep, to dream, to live. Oh, here we go. To breathe. I'm going to choose this picture now. Okay. So, the art of commitment and wholeheartedness in integrating work and life. Whyte goes beyond conventional discussions of work-life balance and delves into the deeper significance of work, encouraging individuals to integrate their authentic self into their personal pursuits, encouraging individuals to integrate their authentic self into their professional pursuits. His insights help people find a sense of purpose, fulfillment, and alignment with their values in their work. And this is one of my favorite poems that I'm going to read to you. Let's see, what page is it on? It's called The Swan by Rilke, page 131. Sweet Darkness is not in the book, but it was a good one to match with, Whyte's teachings here. So this is by Rilke. And to die, which is letting go of the ground we stand on and cling to every day, is like the swan when he nervously lets himself down into the water, which receives him gaily and which flows joyfully under and after him, wave after wave, while the swan, unmoving and marvelously calm, is pleased to be carried each moment more fully grown, like a king, and further on. While the swan, unmoving and marvelously calm, is pleased to be carried each moment more fully grown, more like a king, further and further on. That's translated by Robert Bly. I love that poem because it's really about getting into the waters, which there's no guarantees when we hazard our self, our vision, our voice. There's no guarantees that we're going to achieve the results that we desire. But this is the power of faith, that you can get out of the boat of safety, and let yourself settle in and sort of, I'm seeing a swan sort of, or duck even, kind of wiggling itself and easing itself into this other dimension, into a very emotional dimension of water. So it's very visual, and it's very helpful, and it's a great reminder when you're doing something new to remember that swan. At first you're feeling very awkward and waddling, and it's not comfortable, and then you risk to try something, to enter into this dimension which you believe will be supportive of the qualities and the gifts that you have to give. So this was from Brother David Stendhal, who offers to David Whyte, some advice when David Whyte is just really totally exhausted and hitting the wall and can't see his way forward. And so the beautiful question that matches this, that pairs together with this, is, just having contact with your elemental waters, your elemental sense of belonging. That is what gives you your grace and supports you with your essential buoyancy. And the question is, what are your elemental waters? The waters are not changing you. The waters are supporting you. Here, the swan is pleased to be carried. So these are sort of the invitations or opportunities or, dimensions that you feel completely graceful in and at home, and that you belong in. What are your elemental waters? Okay, this picture, this image is a good one for the next one. The art of beautiful question, of a beautiful question, authenticity and vulnerability, bringing the inner and outer horizons together. The introduction to this is Whyte's emphasis on authenticity and vulnerability is a central theme in his work, authenticity and vulnerability. He challenges readers to embrace vulnerability as a source of strength and to show up as their true selves in all areas of life. This emphasis on authenticity allows for deeper connections, personal growth, and a more meaningful engagement with the world. And this is another poem that I absolutely adore. It's on page 169. It's called The Opening of Eyes. That day I saw beneath dark clouds the passing light over the water, and I heard the voice of the world speak. I knew then, as I had before, life is no passing memory of what has been, nor the remaining pages in a great book waiting to be read. It is the opening of eyes long closed. It is the vision of far-off things, seen for the silence they hold. It is the heart after years of secret conversing, speaking out loud in the clear air. It is Moses in the desert, fallen to his knees before the lit bush. It is the man throwing away his shoes, as if to enter heaven, and finding himself astonished, opened at last, fallen in love with solid ground. Finding himself astonished, opened at last, fallen in love with solid ground. This is a poem about transformation. It looks at the way that any crucial moment or any cliff's edge, and that's a major part of this book, the cliff's edge, are we focused on the cliff or are we looking out to the ocean? There is never a choice between left or right, this way or that. It is always about finding a way that holds the two creatively together. Something is just about to be understood, that which is deepest and truest in you, like the phoenix arising from within you. This courage shifts your reality as your greater good is manifested. Whyte describes the cliff edge as a frontier where passion, belonging, and need call for your presence, your powers, and your absolute commitment. How has your cliff edge called to you? How has your cliff edge called to you? How has your cliff edge opened you? How has your cliff edge opened you? And just write it down. You can walk with that question, dream with that question. The poetry and these beautiful questions, they take time to immerse yourself in and to create space for, so that the answers bubble up. But who knows, maybe something bubbles up in this moment for you. Finally, the art of identity and deep human insight to claim and name oneself. Whyte has a profound understanding of the human experience and human nature. His writings explore the depth of emotions, vulnerabilities, and the universal challenges we all face. He delves into the complexity of relationships, the search for meaning, and the courage required to live a fully engaged and committed life. The courage required to live a fully engaged and committed life. As I was preparing this presentation, I was thinking about the journey, the creative journey to dissertation, Georgie, and just, that being a crossing, and how this book is actually really a wonderful guide and support of, getting out of the boat, crossing the sea, walking on water, and here we are. This poem is called Finding True Love, or it's called The True Love. It's not in the book, but it's about risking to become visible. And here it is. It's by David Whyte. The True Love. There is a faith in loving fiercely, the one who is rightfully yours. And here, this can be your work, your life's work, or it can be a person, your true calling. There is a faith in loving fiercely, the one who is rightfully yours, especially if you have waited years, and especially if part of you never believed you could deserve this loved and beckoning hand held out to you this way. I am thinking of faith now, and the testaments of loneliness, and what we feel we are worthy of in this world, and what we feel we are worthy of in this world. Years ago in the Hebrides, I remember an old man who walked every morning on the gray stones to the shore of the baying seals, who would press his hat to his chest in the blustering salt wind and say his prayer to the turbulent Jesus hidden in the water. And I think of the story of the storm and everyone waking and seeing the distant yet familiar figure far across the water calling to them, and how we all preparing for that abrupt awakening, that calling, and that moment we have to say yes. That calling and that moment we have to say yes. How we all are preparing for that abrupt awakening and that calling and that moment we have to say yes, except it will not come so grandly, so biblically, but more subtly and intimately in the face of the one you have to love. So that when we finally step out of the boat towards them, towards that love, we find everything holds us and everything confirms our courage. And if you wanted to drown, you could, but you don't, because finally, after all the struggle and all the years, you don't want to anymore. You've simply had enough of drowning, and you want to live and you want to love, and you will walk across any territory and any darkness, however fluid and however dangerous, to take the one hand you know belongs in yours. True Love by David Whyte. This poem illustrates the beautiful surprise of having found an opening, having found your way forward across water, of discovering a place, of landing that once seemed hardly able to bear your weight. The feeling and sense of having arrived at solid ground, a foundation upon which to build. Whyte eventually finds his true vocational footing in crossing the unknown sea, and feels that he is standing in exactly the right place, doing exactly the right thing in exactly the right way. And here's the final beautiful question for this evening. Do you identify with a time when everything came together in a stunning unity and flow? Do you identify with a time when everything came together in a stunning unity and flow? If so, what? What came together in stunning unity and flow? Where? In what realm? In what place? In what dimension? When? When did this take place? Why? Why did this take place? And how? How did everything come together in stunning unity and flow? And with that, I'm complete. See how we're doing? Georgie.
Absolutely here.
Okay.
Absolutely here.
And stop share. Okay.
So wonderful. Thank you,
We're
Sanna.
having a heat wave.
Oh,
Like,
wow. This was really, really, really amazing. Thank you so much for this amazing introduction. Well, I have several questions for you, because your sheer passion is just emanating from the Zoom screen. How and when did this book come to you? What part of your life did it just present itself? Do you remember?
yes, I remember. Let's see. Yes, I was in transition. I was in a major big transition in my life, and I also didn't trust the waters. I didn't trust the waters at this time, and I wasn't courageous enough to be myself. I was still trying to perform and trying to get it right, and I guess I didn't think I was worthy of that kind of love, and so it was my mentor who offered this book to us in our community, and of course we all loved it. And those of us who were facilitators of this noble purpose work, we then went on to facilitate this work with David Whyte's book. And of course, we asked for, the permission from the Many Rivers Publishing, and Barry Herman, he spoke directly with David and got his blessings. So we did that for 5 years. And I have to say, I still reread this book. Wow. And it still opens like new dimensions in me. Every time I read it, I notice something new. Like, for instance, most recently, the opening of eyes. Here we go. Yeah, he talks about throwing away his shoes, and then he talks about this student who is a Hasidic student who approached him after one of his lectures, and he said, in a rhetorical way, "Do you know the original translation of God's words to Moses?" The question was rhetorical, and I waited with some fascination for a translation to be supplied. The verb that God used when he asked Moses to remove his shoes was the ancient word for an animal shedding its skin. God said, "Shed your shoes." And, the first couple of times I read this, I think I was focused on other things. But more recently, when I reread this, I was like, wow, that's your protection. That's, having the faith and the courage to make yourself vulnerable. You can be hurt. But until you do it, you don't open, you don't cross the sea. So risking, whether it's risking to be healed or risking to write that dissertation, or risking to show up or write a book or teach a course, whatever, having the faith that there's enough love to hold you.
I think the key word here is faith, for sure, and then faith probably gives you courage to actually go ahead, and not regardless the probable outcome that may or may not happen, and just trust that where you're going, it's where you need to go. So
faith can be an intellectual concept, and that's what I love about this work. It's as he said, he's dedicating this book to his love of the unknown. And I don't know if you've ever read Alif Shafak, but she talks about, maybe it was an interview or something, she came to Zurich and we were listening to her, and she talks about the illness of certainties.
Wow.
And just the times that we live in. And I think I'm becoming an activist for not knowing. I love the spaciousness of that. My body loves the spaciousness of that. So.
Thanks, Laura. Much love. Take care. See you soon. the not knowing, aren't we so afraid of the not knowing, because it's uncertainty and our psyche likes certainty, even if it is not comfortable, but it is the unknown really that but anyway, let's go to Leo. He put a question.
Quick thing. I just have to emphasize, David matches not knowing with intimacy. And I love that, you know.
I do, you know, it's so interesting. I just actually screamed like intimacy of not knowing. I wanted to ask you about it. Could you actually say more? And then we go to Leo's questions.
Oh my goodness. I mean, it's like making love. You never know how it's going to go. But you know, to have a really full experience, you have to let go and not know which direction it's going to go in. Otherwise, it's mechanical. So yeah, but it's again, it's like shedding your protection, your persona, you know, your need to be approved of or liked, your, you know, focus on the surface instead of really being in your own experience and trusting that you're with somebody or with people who are interested, you know, in who you are really at your core.
Oh wow, yeah. Great. Thank you. Thank you, Sanna. So Leo is asking a question. Can you share how Whyte was received in boardrooms or courses you have facilitated? Typical reactions?
Well, I think, you know, he wasn't forcing himself on the corporate world. That's the distinction. Like many times consultants or speakers or whatever, they like want to get in the door. He had full invitation, you know, to be there, and such a mastery of his language, and through the poetry, which is really like magic, you know, it's like casting a spell. So I really recommend it. And he's a wonderful teacher of poetry, and how important it is to have at least one poet as a guide for that realm of, you know, being open to receive what you don't know that you knew, or that, you know, to be surprised and to be expanded. So I think he's a masterful guide. And he's also, you know, he's really interesting in terms of his masculinity, but also his love and appreciation of the feminine dimensions. And so he's a great teacher and guide in terms of a very integrated, very knowledgeable, highly educated man. You learn so much from, you know, his talking about the classics and literature and travel and, you know, anthropology and just endless richness. So it's an absolute privilege if you get to be there with him in person. I'm waiting for the moment. I haven't met him in person, but he leads adventures and explorations in Africa and in Ireland. And then, you know, this is something that I did in the mountains, which was guiding people in the mountains, and then sort of planting some seeds and some seed thoughts, and you know, trying to sort of in an interdisciplinary way to give an experience that goes beyond where one can go on their own. You know, it's an invitation. That's Whyte's work. Conversational reality, conversational nature of reality, and also conversational leadership. And you could exchange the word conversation for invitational. So I love that intention.
Well, hopefully once in 24 hours or 48 hours, when Georg puts this recording on our YouTube channel, David Whyte will reach out to you, and then and you can arrange it.
They say you should never meet the poet. You may be disappointed.
Or not, you know.
No, I don't think so. I think he's a very humble and capable, you know, exceptional person.
Absolutely. I'm sure
And
it would be
I
delightful.
consider him a guide in my life, and he's definitely like amongst my top guides in the realm of poetry.
And
David
that's what
says, all you need is one line of poetry. You know, it's an invocation. It's
uh-huh.
an invitation into an experience and an intention that you want to have for yourself. So I hope everybody finds at least one line of poetry and one poet to love and
sure.
to be opened by.
No, I'm with you, absolutely. Interesting that Leo found that David Whyte is can get registered for his walks or talks, really, but that's in a chat box. And Leo also said that faith as trust and risk-taking. Henry Rowan says, as on the flying trapeze, let go and let the catcher catch you.
Yeah.
That's great. I do think that
everybody can relate to that experience.
Yeah.
You know, of being able to let go, of being able to push away from the shore. You know, it's the Hopi prophecy about like we're in these times, and those who hold onto the shore are going to be pulled apart. You know, get out into the middle of the river and see who's there to celebrate with you.
Yeah, no, yeah, I absolutely agree. And also agree with you that everybody has a favorite poet, and mine is Hermann Hesse. I just you know, you just something when you read poetry, and if it resonates with you, and as you said, it takes time to really digest and let it percolate in your consciousness that what it is that poem really mean to you. But mine actually, the very first one that you shared with us was The Sweet Darkness, especially the last part when it says anything and anyone that does not bring you alive is too small for you. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's just spot on.
Yes.
Wow, it's just brilliant.
There's a stage and a dimension where that version is really helpful for us to grow. And then David Whyte says we have to also then ask ourselves, what is my responsibility that I'm perceiving or framing this person in that smallness, you know? So there's sort of evolution of that. But Georgie, I hope you will give great books on Hermann Hesse. That would
well, actually, Herman, yeah, he's
I
don't know, maybe next year, but this November, December, I'm going to bring in his fairy tales. And because that's another favorite book of mine. And but anyhow, I just like to read this out from Susu, one of our PhD students. She said that my crossroad arises every day after new. My cliff edge opens me up through meditation. What's your take on that? It's subjective, isn't it?
Well, I'm just tuning into it, and that's like the still point in the storm somehow, like, because the cliff's edge is something scary, you know? So that's powerful, Susu. If you know, some people do quite well in crises. I think I do. I'm like, I get into this zone, you know, when things happen. And, you know, we all have our sort of dimensions and areas where we are elemental waters. But if your elemental water, Susu, is to be the calm in the middle of the storm, you know, on the cliff's edge, that's powerful.
Yeah, it is. It is. Anyway, I'd like actually to see our, if anyone would like to make any comments, viva voce. Like, I know that Jan Jung so always got something to share, or Diane, or Dave, or Clarice, or Mary, or Telly. Any of you, if you'd like to join into this discussion and just share how you feel about David Whyte's poems, and maybe you actually read this book. I would love to. I will definitely order it. So either put your questions in the chat box, or put your hand up, and our dear Gaur can open your audio settings, and so be courageous. Go into the unknown.
Yes, please. we invite you. Could you please raise your hands? In the meantime, we have a question in the Q&A function by Leo Jacobi. Do you see it, Georgie?
Yes, I can. Yeah, we already answered that question. I already read that.
Okay, yeah.
And then we have one from Yanyun Song. I love the lecture very much. It is so beautiful. Thank you. Oh, it really is. And also, you know, it's quite unique that we're talking about, or rather we're discussing the work of a contemporary poet, because usually they all gone to the other dimension. So, and that's just really wonderful, because clearly he's going. Do you think that there are more books of his in the pipeline, or?
Well, this is the beautiful thing. Like, I struggled with it at the beginning because I thought, oh, is this a great book? Does this fit into the you know, qualities? And then I said, was like, yes, that's my argument. This is a great book. And then I was reflecting on how wonderful it is that he's still alive, because the conversation continues and you get to see him develop. And there are many ways to engage with him. He's very successful. He has his own publishing company, and you know, it's like 3 Sundays a month where he is, you know, just this amazing raconteur who's like sitting by the fire and talking, whether he's in Ireland or Africa or wherever around the world. And you could just, and he's talking about poetry and invisible dimensions. And
how amazing.
I'm really wondering, like, how can I work with this? What's coming to me is like that poetry is very about vibration and frequency. And I would have loved to have been in Chartres, but it feels like this is, you know, energy medicine, you know, that's for me, that's poetry. It's energy.
Yeah. I like what you said, that you send people medicine poems. I just love that. That's just really wonderful. And actually, we got a question from Susu. She says, I would love to hear about Sanna's cliff edge.
Oh, my cliff edge, yes. Wouldn't I'd like to hear. No.
That's when the question is turning back to.
Okay, all right. Okay, so well, basically many endless cliff edges of leaving. I'm thinking of Rumi's poem, you know, lovers of leaving.
Yeah.
Wanderer, worshiper, lovers of leaving, you know. So definitely, like, growing up in a very sort of conservative world and following all the rules, and then having this near-death experience, and realizing that dying is easy, it's living that's hard. And then you know, having the courage to disappoint people. That was a big learning, because I was so raised, you know, to be approved of and to behave well and all of these things. And, you know, I'm not like I'm not radical. I'm not like a revolutionary, you know, maybe I will be, but I've definitely changed my lifestyle and where I live and the work that I do. And each of those, that's what this book is about, having the courage to change course. Yeah. So whether, you know, I've been married, I've been divorced, that's a huge cliff. Scary, so scary. I think at this stage in my life, I'm 60, and I like a bit more of the solid ground. I think I'm not alone, you know, as we get older, we like a little bit more solid ground. But I was quite an adventurer and world traveler, kind of like David Whyte, I like to say. No, I wish.
Yeah, I think we have so many cliff edges, really, and just need to recognize it. Really, that was a cliff edge, and then we just need to take this
every time. Was it Susu who asked that question? Every time I present, I prepare, but I'm always like jumping off the cliff, and I'm like, well,
totally.
I'm gonna fly, or I'm gonna land on my face.
Yeah, I'm with you. But here we have Telly. Yes, so nice to have you with us. Please go ahead with your comments and the questions. I think you're still muted.
Yes, thank you. I don't often type questions because my thumbs are too thick. First, it was wonderful, the presentation. The comment you just made about death is beautiful. I found that being with people in that process of transition is so transformative, and I love it. The most valuable part to me are the questions that you asked, because there was no obvious answer, you know. So I wanted to say that in terms of the questions, where is your cliff? There were 2 or 3 main questions that you asked that I wrote down. So I appreciate that. And one of the things I'm finding very interesting, I'm now 54, is that there is no sense of like, where's the cliff, or where is it going, or what does it have to be? There's just, every time that comes up, I just drop it, and there's this beauty around me. But that's not really helpful with people. With people, it's still a process of learning how to connect with this group of people. Particularly, I love the people at Ubiquity and the depths of consideration and conversations. It's just such an attractive group to be around. So that's really what I wanted to contribute.
Thank you, Tali.
Yes.
And you work in as a companion with people who are dying? Like,
no, I've done that. I grew up in a small spiritual community, and these people are they're like my heroes, and not heroes as in like they're, you know, Moses or something. They're just people who have lived from the heart with great depth and integrity, and really no fear, as far as I could see, man. There were no holes barred. So I was terrified when they would come to their death. You know, you're a kid and you're thinking, oh, what is it? How's it going to be? I recently wrote just a really brief piece about someone who was one of my key mentors throughout my whole life. And I convinced him to let me come over. He's big, Italian, super charismatic. Everyone thought he was like the life of the party. And as he got close to his death, he really wasn't social. But I was like, listen, you have no family. Your wife was my dear friend. And so I would go to see him, and he said, I'm in a space of conscious light. I'm not about socializing right now. So I would just go over and I would do like sacramental service, bringing flowers and chanting and just feeling his space. And he said, you know, I've left the body 10 or 15 times now. And I would come out from his meditation hall where he could hear me doing these sacramental services. And there would just be like this transportative smile on his face, and just the zone, the energy in the room was profound. And so I've been a corporate person all my life, and I convinced my husband that I am in a midlife crisis. I came back to school. I want to contribute something, and that's hard because I don't know where to start. Like, I feel like everyone's got such a huge head start, you know, and you pick up academics at
David Whyte has a good poem for you, Tali. It's called Start Close In. Start Close In. So you can look that up. You probably can Google it. Start Close In by David Whyte, and that would be a medicine poem for you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Start close.
Thank you, Tali. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Well, do join us next month, same time, same place, and we very much look forward to hear part 2. Part 2.
8/8.
Yay!
Yes.
Absolutely. Sanna, are there any final words from you before we just say see you in a month's time?
Yes, I guess be gentle. Be gentle with yourself and others. This is a strange time that we're in, and I just wish you all great gentleness and presence and awareness to the beauty that is here.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, dear Sanna. Well, stay well and safe, all of you, and thank you for joining us. And thank you, Sanna, for the amazing presentation. See you in a month's time.
Okay, thank you,
All the very
Georgie.
best. Take
Bye.
care. Bye-bye.